So when you look at this drawing and this other drawing, which do you like better? Of course, it's the second one. And do you know why? Can you tell the difference between these two drawings? It is contrast. First of all, when I say contrast, what do I mean by contrast? Contrast is how dark your shadows are and how light your highlights are. Look at this drawing. Would you say that this drawing has contrast? Of course not. The darkest parts of the drawings, like the eyes, the nostrils, the eyebrows, the lips, these parts are not as dark as they need to be. In fact, even this eye drawing that I am drawing now, you can see that the dark areas, the eyelashes, the iris, these areas are not as dark as they need to be. And so the drawing doesn't look realistic. It looks more like a sketch. And the thing is that you will not call this a bad drawing. I mean, look at the proportions, look at the shading. The drawing is nicely shaded, it's nicely blended, the proportions are okay, but then the drawing does not pop. We face the same issue now with the eye drawing. As you can see, the places that need to get dark are not as dark, and so they all look flat. Like an unfinished sketch, the photo does not pop. To make this drawing pop, we need to darken the shadows. Now, watch what happens when we make the shadows darker. Right away, it looks like a completely different drawing. The eyelashes are darker, the iris is darker, the eyebrows are also darker. For the portrait, you can also see that the hair is darker. Look at the nostrils. You can see that the whole drawing pops out of the page. But wait, making your drawings pop involves more than just darkening the shadows. Even when the shadows are dark, your drawing can still look flat. Now, when you look at this drawing, what do you say this drawing is lacking? Yes, if you have guessed it, highlights. The highlights are not as bright as they need to be. With this eye drawing, we have our dark shadows. Everything is dark as they need to be, but the highlights are dull. It's almost as if they are non-existent. And this is something that you want to avoid, especially when you are drawing eyes. You can forget the highlights when you are drawing anything else, but when you are drawing the eyes, you cannot get away with ignoring the highlights. You have to make the highlights pop so that the drawing can come to life. Now, let's take our eraser and erase the dirtiness from the highlights. Just see how that action restores the shining glory of the eyes. You can actually feel the glossiness of the eyes because of the shine. The point is, make the shadows very dark and the highlights very light. And now, one of the main reasons why most people shy away from going dark is because they are afraid. Like, it is much more easier to shade like this since you can erase it easily, while it is harder to shade like this since shading like this is like setting it on stone. But you need to throw that fear out of the window, because if you don't go dark, well, your drawings will suffer. Now, it is one thing to shade your deep shadows dark. It is another thing to shade the entire skin also darker. Most people do well and they make their deep blacks black. Like for example, you can see they can make the eyes to be dark, the hair, the eyebrow, they can all be dark, but then the skin will lack shading. They may only shade a couple of layers and then they'll stop. Again, this may be because they have that fear. But shading lightly will only make your drawings look amateurish. If you look at this, my friend's drawing from a few months ago, you can see that he made the darkest part darker, like the hair, the eyes. But then the reason why this drawing does not pop is because the skin lacks shading. In fact, I'm guessing that he may only have just used an HB pencil and called it a day. And when you look at the reference photo, you can see that the reason why he shaded it lightly is because of the reference photo itself is particularly light. So he must have thought, well, since the skin is light, let me make my drawing also light. But I think we can still go darker with the skin. Well, I tried to make it darker digitally with a drawing app on my phone, but well, I failed miserably. Clearly, digital art is not for me. But in any case, you get the point. When you are shading with your actual pencil, you want to shade the skin so that it is actually darker and it doesn't look blank. One last tip you want to keep in mind again when you are shading is to make the backgrounds of your drawings black. Take a look at these drawings. One reason why you will say that these drawings stand out and pop is because of the background is dark. But you want to be careful though. If the reference photo you are using does not have a dark background and then you now try to force a dark background on the drawing, it may not look natural. Try to find photos that have black backgrounds first. Then when you draw, you add the black backgrounds on the drawing, and this way the drawing will look more natural. So remember these tips. Make sure that your drawings have contrast. And by contrast, I mean make your deep shadows black and your highlights bright. Then don't just stop at the HB pencil. Opt for other darker pencils, 2B, 3B, 4B. Use also dark backgrounds in your drawings. And then lastly, shade the skin more. When it comes to shading the skin with graphite pencils, I would suggest that you watch the video on the screen now. It will take you through the process of shading, blending, creating highlights to make your drawings more realistic. Watch that. Yes, that. And I'll see you in the next video.